Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unconfirmed, the podcast that reveals how the marquee names in crypto are reacting to the week's top headlines and gets the inside scoop on what they see on the horizon. I'm your host, Laura Shin. Meltem Demirors of CoinShares and Jalak Jobanputra of Future Perfect Ventures and I are all teaching a crypto workshop at Omega Institute in Rye Bank, New York from September 20th to the 22nd. If talking crypto while doing yoga, eating healthy food, and enjoying the outdoors is your jam, then go to the show notes now for the link to join us. Want to know what I think are the most important crypto news stories and takes every week? Sign up for my email newsletter at unchainedpodcast.com.
CoinDesk, the #1 blockchain and crypto media outlet, is hosting Consensus in New York City. Tickets are on sale now at www.consensus2019.com, where you can save $300 with promo code UNCONFIRMED300. CipherTrace makes it easy for exchanges and crypto businesses to comply with cryptocurrency anti-money laundering laws. Avoid illegal sources of funds and maintain healthy banking relationships. CipherTrace is helping you grow the crypto economy by keeping it safe and secure.
Today's guest is Robert-Jan Den Haan, a freelance journalist and contributor to the blog who has been researching the Bitfinex Tether situation for over a year. Welcome, Robert-Jan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I was in Berlin when all this news about Bitfinex and Tether broke, and I have barely had time to keep up on all the developments since, and there's been a ton. Why don't you start with a high-level overview of what has happened, starting with kind of like setting the scene from early 2017 when Bitfinex lost its banking relationship with Wells Fargo?
Right. Well, I think we can fill an entire podcast with that one by itself. So in March of 2017, Bitfinex was using banks in Taiwan. They had been using those for quite a while, but at that point, Wells Fargo stopped being stopped offering its services to be a correspondent bank to them, and that really got them into a jam. Like they had no access to stable banking, and basically. The way out of that was first to buy time by suing Wells Fargo. They tried that, but they withdrew the lawsuits. But then, secondly, they by starting to work with this third party payment processors, and then particularly crypto capital. If we fast forward a little bit to what's happening now, is we now know that Bitfinex is down $850 million, or not necessarily down, but it's missing them, and they're inaccessible because they're apparently with crypto capital, but they have been seized by authorities. At least that's what they have been told. They're sort of contesting this story from crypto capital, but at the end of the day, at this moment, they're missing this money. And the way to solve that, because they had troubles processing the withdrawals for their customers, was to draw on a line of credit from Tether. The stablecoin that is directly associated with Bitfinex, or basically it's the same people behind them. So that's sort of the very quick of what happened in 2017, and with a fast forward, like right now, Bitfinex has a serious issue, basically.
And so everybody in the crypto community, or not everybody, but most people are familiar with Bitfinex and Tether. But it really sounds like the loss of this money starts with this other company that most people are not familiar with, Crypto Capital. So what happened there exactly?
Mm-hmm. So what happened there is basically, if you look at how this company was operating, it seems that they were like getting in companies in different countries, either incorporating them or buying them up, and then they use those companies to open accounts at various banks. So we know about bank accounts in Poland, in Portugal, in the US, and a few other ones, but those are the very important countries to remember. And whenever, like at some point, those accounts stopped working, right? Either banks shut them down, or in fact, they were seized by authorities. So basically, they were playing this cat and mouse game to use accounts for as long as possible. But at some point, the music stopped playing. And then they moved on to a new account. So that was the way that they were getting bank accounts. And then for Bitfinex specifically, they were providing these accounts as directly to be like the deposit address for people to deposit fiat currency into the Bitfinex platform.
So for the 850 million, when it comes to that, that is the amount that I guess was lost through crypto capital. But what is the current status of that money, or at least the portion that we have information about?
Yeah, basically, we know that from what Bitfinex has told the New York State Attorney General's office, that it's 850 million that is basically tied up with crypto capital. So what we know is that they're part of, or they have been seized, or at least part of it has been seized in 3 countries, the countries that we just named, being Poland, Portugal, and the US. And what we can confirm is that there was an anti-money laundering operation in Poland, linked to the subsidiary of crypto capital, right? So this happened in early in 2017, and I can almost specifically get you the date, but it's really like the end of January, around then that it was the initial move, and that led to the seizure of two companies, and then later on a follow-up company. So a third company was then involved in the investigation. So one is the subsidiary of Crypto Capital, one is connected to Crypto Capital through the same people, and the third one was used by Crypto Capital for its own customers, also to obtain bank accounts. So that's what we can confirm, and in that light, it was related to around $350 million or equivalent of that. But we do not know for sure if that full amount is also part of the 850 million that that Bitfinex is missing. And then in Portugal, we know more or less that something happened there as well, but it's not really clear whether or not we're really talking about a seizure by authorities or not. And we do also know now with news breaking a few days later, where Reginald, Fowler, and Ravid, Yosef were indicted for, among others, bank fraud and conspiracy to do so, that there's also money seized in the US. And there was, in this indictment, it was related to that they were saying, hey, we want to have bank accounts, or we're opening bank accounts for real estate business. But in fact, these were indeed accounts to process transactions for cryptocurrency exchanges. And we know that one of them was Bitfinex through Crypto Capital. Like, these accounts were used for them. One of the accounts even named the number of it in that indictment matches an account that was used by Bitfinex. So we also know that money has been seized there. We don't know the amount, though.
And all of these actions, they may not all deal with the exact same entities, but the people behind those entities are roughly the same. Is that correct? Meaning, like, Crypto Capital, Global Trading Solutions, which are actually 2 different companies, one in Switzerland, one in the US. And so can you kind of describe how all those are related?
Yeah, so Crypto Capital was originally from Panama, but now it's operating indeed from a company in Switzerland. It's called Global Trade Solutions, and there's another company, and that's linked to the Mr. Fowler that's now been indicted here in the US, which is called Global Trading Solutions LLC. But they're, from what you can tell, they're separate companies, but from what it's been described to me as this, that the American company is like an agent of Crypto Capital. But from what it looks like is that it was sort of the US branch of it. Like, on paper, it's separate. In practice, it was only dealing them with each other. And then if you look at the people behind it, then, the Mr. Reginald Fowler was, he's not part of Crypto Capital as far as we can tell. But we have some like wire details that we could look at, which were through companies owned by him in Portugal, that was sending out fiat withdrawals from Bitfinex, processed through Crypto Capital. So there's multiple links with the same people, with money going one way or the other, between Crypto Capital and this American company.
And then we also have these 2 different moves by the New York regulators. Do those moves seem coordinated? Yeah,
so if we look at indeed, so we have the New York Attorney General office in relation to Bitfinex, and then indeed this indictment by the Southern District of New York for Mr. Fowler and Ravid, Yosef. Yes, they seem very much related. So one, of course, they're only 5 days apart. Of course, it was an unsealed indictment. We now learned just now that the initial indictment was issued on the 11th of April, so a little bit earlier. But considering that it's unsealed now, it does look like that was purposely done until this other file was issued. And if you think about it, if you look at that, that they're trying to find the money that's missing, or at least Bitfinex is, I would hope, then it would make all the much sense that they're actually cooperating on this if they suspect that crypto capital is telling them a false story, right? They would have every incentive to try to get that money back and cooperate with, in this case, then the New York Attorney General's office, to see where this money actually is, and try to get it back. I think we can just assume that the different offices in New York communicate with each other. So they're connected.
Yeah, and I would say that also makes sense, although, we're not really sure right now, but it just seems like, obviously, if Bitfinex had entrusted crypto capital with its money, crypto capital wasn't returning the money, and now the regulators are going after crypto capital, and Bitfinex thinks that could help them get the money back. Of course, the incentives would line up, but I would definitely say one detail that stuck out, of course, which a lot of people have been talking about, is the fact that Bitfinex engaged crypto capital, but they did not drop a contract with them, which is, probably another source of their woes. All right, so we're going to discuss.
Yeah. So the moment I read that, my jaw dropped. Like, we're talking. I mean, I sign a contract for just to publish a story, or to add. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We're talking about millions of dollars.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to discuss some more recent developments, and also Bitfinex's initial exchange offering in a moment. But first, a quick word from our fabulous sponsors.
Did you know that if money laundering were an economy, its GDP would be the size of Canada's? Large volumes of tainted crypto assets move through financial networks, often below the radar of banks. Cybercriminals use unregulated crypto exchanges to avoid detection. No wonder governments around the world are rolling out tough, new anti-money laundering laws for cryptocurrencies. Complying with those laws isn't easy. Banks and exchanges need the best cryptocurrency intelligence available to avoid penalties. Now you can use the same powerful AML and compliance monitoring tools used by regulators. CipherTrace is securing the crypto economy. To learn more, visit ciphertrace.com/unchained. At Consensus 2019, hear from trailblazers like Neil Ferguson, Christine Moy, head of JP Morgan's blockchain program, Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, and others leading the way in blockchain and crypto technology. Participate in a hackathon at Microsoft's Tech Center, where developers will compete for $30,000 in prizes, and network with executives, developers, founders, regulators, investors, government officials, and more. Get your tickets now, as this event is getting close to selling out. Go to www.consensus2019.com to register. Don't forget to use code UNCONFIRMED300 so they know we sent you.
Back to my conversation with Robert Jan Den Haan. So on Thursday, which is actually the day you and I are recording, there was yet another development involving Reginald Fowler. So what happened there?
So today another court filing was made, in this case by the District of Arizona, and it was related to the plaintiff being a flight risk. So they asked that he remains detained until the trial. And this was published, or at least the document I found this just minutes before we started recording this. So I've quickly gone over it. I might, if I missed something, we'll send some tweets out. But it looks like that the document itself, it really specifies like what they were doing. And one of the key things to look at is that basically the prosecutors, they found sort of an email exchange where they were talking about the sort of, I believe it's called a US workbook or something. And it sort of shows that they were contemplating, or perhaps even executing already, that they were going to take like 10% of the money that they were running, which would mean or indicate that 10% of the money they were processing for crypto capital, that they were trying to sort of embezzle it, I suppose. And the other thing related to that is that one of the main reasons why they think he's a flight risk is that Mr. Fowler has a lot of money in accounts abroad, overseas. So to the point where, and I'm quoting for the document, is that he could live indefinitely abroad from the funds that he has, basically. So that means that there's still a lot of money missing, perhaps not seized. We don't know exactly how that all lines up. But clearly there's more going on here than just money being seized from crypto capital itself.
Wow. All right. Yeah. And there's one other, this isn't a development, but it is a development, but it's more kind of news that something will happen on Monday. I read a CoinDesk article that had been updated to say, quote, on Tuesday, New York Supreme Court Justice Joel Cohen ordered the New York Attorney General's office to demonstrate to the court why the Attorney General's initial ex parte order should not be canceled outright, or at least modified to allow Bitfinex and Tether's employees to access a line of credit offered by Tether to Bitfinex. The NYAG must submit a response detailing its reasoning by May 6th, 2019. And that's Monday. So what is the significance of that?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure because I wouldn't say I'm particularly familiar, or at least not familiar enough with US law, how that would work out. But what I do know from, actually mostly having followed what's been going on with Mr. Mueller in the US, is that usually, you start reading things about law. From what I understand is that usually the courts really puts a high level of a high burden on being able to prove that a move is necessary on the government. Like usually the government has most of the resources to prove something, so make sure that it's really necessary. So for me, this is not a positive or negative in the sense like that it's good for Bitfinex or bad for Bitfinex. This is just sort of something that has to be done. What the outcome of that is, I don't know.
Okay. So let's now move on to the fact that Bitfinex is now apparently planning an initial exchange offering of $1 billion. What's your take on why they're doing this and whether or not it's a good move?
Yeah. So basically, I wrote earlier this week in one of the articles about these developments, like maybe Bitfinex is realizing that it needs a plan B. So there were some rumors from apparently a shareholder who's saying like, hey, we expect this money to become available within just a few weeks. Well, that seems very unlikely if you look at that. Well, we know, for example, that the Polish investigation has been ongoing for a year. And I know also that is still ongoing. So a matter of weeks is not very realistic. I wouldn't say near future is very realistic. So maybe they're looking into a way to close the gap in a different way. Like if you think about it, then an initial exchange offering for $1 billion would cover the whole of the 850 million that they currently have. So that's take one. Whether or not that's a good thing, or to be honest, I would expect that they have communicated this also with an attorney, the Attorney General's office in New York. Then again, having read the filing by that office again, there seems to have been a breakdown in the communication when this Tether line of credit started to happen, like postponing that they had to produce documents, and then once this line of credit was really closed, then all of a sudden things were produced for the office. So I don't know. First, I was thinking they must have at least communicated this plan, right? But I'm not so sure anymore. So whether or not it's a good idea from that perspective, I would hope so. If they've communicated and they've been given a green light to do so, then probably it's a good thing. Otherwise, I'm not so sure how that office is going to respond to that plan if executed.
Yeah, there's something about this that reminds me a little bit of back when they had the hack and then they socialized the losses with that token, where, and I think this is what a lot of people's complaint is with Bitfinex and Tether, that it appears, and whether or not that is actually the case, I think remains to be seen, but it appears that they are really smart with the different ways that you can use magic internet money. And so, do you know what I'm saying? So there is something that appears a little bit like, oh, like you're in a pickle, just create a token. So we'll see, whether or not this is something that has the regulator's blessing, I guess.
Yeah. I can add though that from what I've been told by a source just also not too long ago, is that so I guess this is sort of a mini scoop, but I want to stress that this is a rumor. I cannot confirm this, but apparently there is a launch scheduled for invited investors of Bitfinex in Hong Kong on the 14th of May. So that could indicate that this initial exchange offering is indeed going to happen. But I cannot confirm this, so take it with a grain of salt, but otherwise you've heard it here first.
Okay. Well, I guess we will, events are moving quickly, so we will probably find out soon enough whether or not that can be verified. Well, the last couple of questions I want to ask, why do you think it is that the market hasn't reacted much? Yeah,
that's a good question. I saw a tweet by Alex Kruger. He's a trader, and he was actually listing some reasons why it might be. I'm quickly getting it back up. But so he was suggesting like one, shorting is expensive, and as well as arbiters might profit from when Tether prices deviate between different exchanges. At the same time, other stablecoins are less liquid than USDT, so maybe it's still functioning in that regard. Yeah, so there are multiple reasons. He lists a few more. So there's multiple reasons why there could be that it hasn't really been fluctuating that much or going down that much. I think the premium is like only 1% at the moment, but the premium on Bitfinex though is much higher.
Yeah. I think there are people. I think for Bitcoin on Bitfinex, it is trading at a premium. One thing I would recommend people do is, you guys should listen to the most recent episode of What Grinds My Gears, which is Meltem's and Jill Carlson's podcast, because it's all about the Tether situation. But Meltem made some really insightful remarks about the usefulness of Tether, and also just commented on the fact that there are a lot of people outside of the US who traded on secondary markets, and they, they're not really following like what's going on with the New York Attorney General's office. And in general, she was saying that like it's almost like there are two markets for Tether. There's the one where, you need to withdraw and make deposits and, obtain the Tether. And then like it has this second life, right? Where there are many markets where it trades, but not, it's not like you're going to withdraw dollars. So it's just trading against Bitcoin or wherever. And so in that regard, like it's serving a useful, purpose there. And that could be another factor for why, the price hasn't plummeted despite the fact that it's only 74% backed at the moment.
Yeah.
All right. So last question, what questions are you looking at going forward?
Well, I'm mostly looking forward to learn about where is the money, basically. Follow the money is always a good thing for investigative journalists. So where is that? Is it all there? All the 850 million in this case for Bitfinex, is that still there, or is part of it gone now, or maybe not retrievable, so to say? And then if we do find it, then is it going to be returned in that sense? Like in that case, usually if money is seized, and especially if it's in this case seized by a company that holds assets for another person or company, then you would, as Bitfinex, would have to make claim to the amount. But that might be tricky to prove, especially with all these commingling of sources. I don't know how that would work out. But you could also have competing claims that somebody else is claiming part of the money as well. And from my understanding, at least here in the Netherlands, those kinds of situations can last a long, long time before being resolved.
Yeah, so we will see what happens with that. One last thing I would urge listeners to do is I will put a link in the show notes to this satiric article by Coin Jazeera that had me like laughing out loud. It was so funny. It skewers pretty much everybody in the story. And because if you've been following the commentary on crypto Twitter, suddenly all these people that would always be shouting proof of reserves whenever there was any indication that any exchange might be running a fractional reserve, now they're suddenly defending Bitfinex at being only 74% Tether. So it was making fun of people like that. Then it was making fun of the actual fractional reserve banking system that we have in the US, and the fact that the regulators are going after Tether when actually the normal banking system is even less fully backed. And anyway, so the whole thing is just hilarious. I just was dying reading it. But anyway, well, thank you so much, Robert Jan. It's been great having you in Unconfirmed.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today. To learn more about the topics we discussed, be sure to check the links in the show notes of your podcast player. If you are not yet signed up for my email newsletter, go to unchainedpodcast.com right now to get my thoughts on the top crypto stories of the week. And be sure to check out our new channel on YouTube. Unconfirmed is produced by me, Laura Shin, with help from Fractal Recording, Jenny Josephson, and Daniel Nuss. Thanks for listening.